From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, joined by a good friend of mine on the phone.
It's I, Hector Bosa, the hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV, joining you. Hey, Jamie, tell them what time again and what channel it is for those people that don't know that will know for next time.
All right, just to give you an idea, we're on every Monday night at 7 p.m. On Fios, we're on Channel 37, and on Spectrum, we're on 1997.
So, getting back to, Eric Lundqvist is getting older now.
Yeah.
But I think he still thinks he still has the potential to still be able to play.
Well, naturally he would think that way.
Of course, because, sometimes the brain tells you one thing and the body tells you another. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're in great condition. Look at Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And what do you think of Eric Lundqvist bringing down his his goalie, him slowing down, or them trying to slow him down while they're trying to bring someone up?
Well, I think it's gotten to a point with Lundqvist where there have been a couple of games when he's looked a little slow in between the pipes, maybe half a step to one step slow in between the pipes, and because of that, they've had to bring in the Russian kid, Georgiev, who's played reasonably well in a couple of games. So this brings up the point that I made about a year ago. I think it might be time for the Rangers to explore looking elsewhere in goal, because as much as we've respected Lundqvist for every single performance he's given the Rangers in the past, he's slowed down a little bit, and I think it might be time either to consider a change in address or maybe do a little bit more mentoring of the Russian kid and bow out gracefully.
Why don't you use him as a backup goalie?
I mean, it makes sense because he's practically been slowly but surely reduced to the role of a backup in the past. I'm not really sure if his pride will allow it, because he's the kind of guy who thinks that he wants to be starting every single game, which is natural. But at the same time, maybe it is right about that point where he may have to consider being a backup for a time.
Well, here's the thing, and that is, people have this mindset that if you're a certain age, you have to stop playing. And for instance, Vince Carter.
Vince Carter doesn't know the meaning of the word retirement. He still wants to go. He probably wants to go for another year.
Why not? If your body, if you're still good, and your body will allow it, and you're still competing at a high level, why not? Why should people tell you, oh, well, you're old, you're a certain age now you should be bowing out gracefully, even though you're still doing what you're doing? I mean, heck, even the old-timers, because they can still hit the blaster ball. They may not be able to field, they may not be doing anything else, but they can still hit.
That's why they have DHs in the American League.
Yeah, you get one of those old-timers still, and I'll bet you they'll still hit that damn ball from this time. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. Some people have this concept of age about, leave it to the young guys, and that at 31 or 35, you should step down now. You should stop playing basketball. Your role should be lower now. You should be the sixth man. If you're still competing at the same level, then you know what? Then let the play, let your game decide. Don't let people decide. You know, if the Rangers want to get rid of him, that's fine. If they want to reduce him, that's fine too. But if he comes back next year and wants to compete for it, why not? If he's able to do it, then let him do it. If not, you got a quality backup goalie, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then let the guy mentor him while he's competing, because eventually, you know, the guy's got to slow down. Eventually, he's going to make mistakes, and the coach is going to say, you know what, that's enough. We've had enough. You're not playing up to par. You got to sit out a couple of games. And then the other guy will probably catch fire, and then whoever's the hottest hand, that's how you play. That's how you should play, whoever is the hottest hand.
So true.
Yeah, so I think that's one of those things where you go and say, you know, it's not about so much age, it's about how your body holds up. So people got to get that concept out of the way. But I think the Rangers should be at a point where, do they have that many players that are not playing up to par?
Well, there's definitely a few that are not quite up to par. And because of that, the Rangers have already not necessarily mailed it in, but they're already looking ahead to next season and the season after, because they've made quite a few deals for some of their best guys. For example, Matt Zuccarello got traded to Dallas, and a couple of other guys got sent away. So it looks like they're really looking at going with the younger players for the last 20 games of the season.
And right now, the Rangers have no chance of making the playoffs.
Oh no, they're at least 10 points behind that last playoff spot in the East. So
mathematically, they're still out.
Mathematically, they're still in it, but theoretically, I think their season's pretty much done.
And the Devils?
The Devils have been done. They've been done since the start of the season. It's a real shame, too, because after the season that they had last year, there was a lot of hope for them. But this year, there's been a real disappointment. A lot of guys have not stepped it up this year.
Has it been injury? Has it been what do you think it's been, or has it been coaching that the guy's been there so long that they're tired of hearing the same message? What do you think it is?
Well, the guy's only been there. This is just his second season, so it's definitely not that. I just think it's performance-wise. They've had a little trouble with their power play. Defensively, they've been horrific. They've gotten shredded every single time. Goaltending has been a bit of a problem, because there was a point where Corey Schneider went practically a year, literally went a year without getting a major victory, and he finally got that first victory recently. Had a bit of a hot streak for a time, winning 4 out of 5, but now it looks like he's fallen back down to earth. And they traded the other goalie, Keith Kincaid, away. So naturally, the Devils look like they're going to have to look ahead to the future. They may have the luxury of a high draft pick to probably get them going. But we're just going to have to wait and see.
You know, going back to the Rangers for a moment, did you know that they used a rule that's rarely used? And that's how the Capitals won.
And what rule would that be?
It's because I'm reading here. It says, inside, rarely used NHL rule that led to Rangers loss to Capitals. And I'm trying to find that out now. And that is Section 25.4 indicates that during penalty shots, a goal will be awarded when a goalkeeper attempts to stop a penalty shot by throwing his stick or any other object at the player.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a shot or that's it.
Yeah, you're not supposed to throw the stick either at the player or at the puck to try and make a stop.
So that's it. And the Swedish prospect, he's injured right now, but they're saying he's got pretty good news.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an update on him, and he's doing well. Jacob, oh Jesus, this is gonna be. I'm not gonna even attempt to do his last name, but for those people that know, fans out there, but I wanted to say the Devils are at the bottom of the basement. Do you think they just need changes, or do you think right now, do you think they could still be at the same?
I think they're going to have to do a major upgrade in personnel, specifically in the draft, because it doesn't seem like they can get anybody in free agency to make their way to the Garden State.
But I'm surprised because, you know, they are a team that have won championships in the past. It's not as if...
That was a long time ago.
But they still hold a pretty good pedigree considering that they were the Buffalo Sabres.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
You know, because remember, the New Jersey Devils were not the New Jersey Devils. They were the Buffalo something at one point.
Actually, they were the Colorado Rockies.
Colorado Rockies, excuse me, you're right. They were the Colorado Rockies, and when they were the Colorado Rockies, they weren't doing nothing at all.
Yeah.
And when was the last time the Devils actually did anything?
2013, I think it was when they went to the finals in that strike-shortened year.
So that's not bad. They still got it. I mean, I think they can still bring in people if their salary cap lets them. I'm sure they'll play for them. But maybe you're right. Maybe they got to start off with the draft and be done with it. Now, how are the Islanders? Are they still hot?
Unfortunately, they've slumped the last couple of games. They wound up getting their heads handed to them by the Flyers just yesterday, and the game before that, they wound up losing to the Capitals. So now that Metropolitan Division lead is really, really tight right now. It's the Isles and the Caps that are, I think, tied for the division lead.
You know, I was hearing on the radio yesterday about the Villanova and Chris Mullins' team.
Yeah.
How they have a great team, but for some reason they're not really showing greatness.
Well, the players that they have are good, but there have been times when they haven't been able to rebound the basketball very well. That seems to be the way to beat the Red Storm. If you rebound against them, because St. John's does not have that much height. If you rebound the ball against them, you have a really good chance of winning. And that was exactly what happened against Xavier this past Wednesday and yesterday against DePaul. And DePaul's got this one kid that really torched them for 40 points yesterday. Now St. John's placement in the Big East tournament is a little bit shaky now because they've gone from third place to probably sinking a little bit lower, because if they don't beat Xavier again this coming weekend, I think St. John's might be a little bit lower in the totem pole.
Because they were saying it was the coaching. Do you think it's Chris Mullins' coaching?
No, it's definitely not Chris Mullins' coaching at all. I just think that St. John's is playing in a really, really rough Big East conference. I mean, they're in there with Villanova and Marquette. Providence has given St. John's a lot of trouble. So has DePaul. Seton Hall has been tough this year. The whole league is wide open this year. So I really think that St. John's needs to step it up by the time the tournament starts next week.
So which one do you have? You have which tournaments are out there right now? Because they've changed so much. Before it was the Big Ten. Now it's, I think, 16 teams now.
Mm-hmm.
Which tournaments are out there? And
well,
at the moment, who's number one on that top list?
Well, the number one team in the country right now is Gonzaga. And I think Gonzaga is going to coast through the West Coast Conference Tournament, even though they have maybe one or two solid teams that are in that field. But right now, a couple of the conference tournaments are going to be starting soon as of this week. Let me see if I can look it up on my phone over here.
Yeah.
A couple of the smaller tournaments are going to be starting soon.
But
Let's
unless
see.
you're in
We've
one
got,
of those big
here we are. The Atlantic Sun Tournament.
Right.
The Atlantic Sun Tournament's going to be starting this week. And then after that, let me just find out a little bit more. Wait. Let me just see what we can do over here.
Yeah.
Yes. The Missouri Valley, the MAC, which is the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference Tournament. The Northeast Conference Tournament is going to be starting on Wednesday. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Wagner really sunk at the near the bottom of the conference this year. They were just 7th place for the entire tournament.
Wagner College?
Wagner College, just a 13-16 record, 8-10 in the Northeast Conference.
You see now,
the two best teams in the Northeast were Fairleigh Dickinson and St. Francis of Pennsylvania.
You were talking about before. Now, people were talking about how Villanova is going to be hard getting people to be recruited there because they haven't done much. But how can you recruit at Wagner College? What can you say about Wagner College that says, "Hey, come play with us. We'll give you a great education, but who'll notice you?"
Well, in the case of Wagner College, they would probably recruit up and down the East Coast, and they would, in a way, I think they would convince a kid to make their way to Wagner by saying, we've got ample opportunity for playing time, and you'll be able to compete in a really, really tough league with some really good players. So
that's a tough sell considering you got Villanova and them other places out there that they're not doing as well, but they still have the pull of going, well, here's Chris Moan, a former player here, or hell, even how's Patrick Ewing doing at Georgetown? Do you know?
Yeah, Georgetown has, league-wise, they've been very up and down this season. They've been a 500 club at 8-8, so it's going to be a little bit tough for them to try and make the NCAA tournament. I would think the only way for them to make the NCAAs would be to win the Big East tournament overall.
Man, wasn't it great back in the early years? Well, when Patrick Ewing and Villanova and Mutombo was there, not Mutombo, Hakeem Olajuwon was playing at college.
Yeah, the University of Houston.
Great times. You don't hear about those great days anymore, and that's a shame.
I mean, the game is still really, really growing because there are some really good players that are out there that are getting close to being that big find in the for the NBA. Unfortunately, Zion Williamson is still out because he hurt his knee, but there are still other guys out there that could be well worth a look. I mean, there's R.J. Barrett. There's also Jay Morant from Morgan State. Even in the Big East, there's Marquette has a really, really solid player that's been making his way up the ranks. He's just a sophomore.
Yeah, but it's not like before where, they really made a big stink about Georgetown and Villanova and them other school kids. I mean, remember, there were times where they kept on saying, I mean, even for people that were into college were looking at college basketball. This is how good it was getting at some point. Because I wasn't a college guy, and all I kept on hearing was, "Oh, Patrick Ewing, oh, Chris Mullin." It was like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird all over again.
Well, you still have that today. There's the players that I mentioned right now.
But they don't do it as much as before. There's not that much excitement that you hear on TV unless there's so many channels that you don't hear about it.
That's because the kids are leaving for the pros after 1 or 2 years.
Well, you can't blame them. Education's a great thing, and they're taking it from people that deserve it. But if you're that much of a great player, get paid first, and then, you already went through March Madness. Go back to college, even while you're going through, even while you're playing, or take time off, because an education is a great thing. Because eventually, the game, you're not going to be there. You're only going to be there for how long,
Speaking of which, just recently, the league has been holding talks about changing the age limit from 19 back to 18.
They should be.
Which means these kids that are graduating high school can now turn pro after high school.
Now, here's my bit for King and Country on that one. If at 18 you can register to go to the military, then why not? Then why not be able to go into the NBA? All right, you don't have the brains enough. Hey, that's up to your parents to decide how they brought you up and all that. And you'll be taken good care of if you have the right people around you. And that's the thing. You'll have hordes of people until you lose money. Look at what happened to Mike Tyson and all them other people that did it early and spent all that money. Nowadays, kids are a little smarter. They're into business now. Now they know stuff that other guys never knew before.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that? Do you think they're smarter now, or do you think they're still the same?
I would probably think that they're still the same. If anything, that's a really good question. I mean, when you think about it,
because remember, they see LeBron James getting businesses now, their favorite rappers. They're not only doing music, but they're going into movies now. So I think they're getting a little bit wiser. Some, not all, but I think some are.
So, but for every LeBron though, you also have the issue of you also have kids like Kwame Brown, or let's see,
all them guys that didn't succeed that should have been up there, and that's true. And you're right.
Kwame Brown, D'Antonio Wingfield, guys who didn't really last in the game that long.
But let me ask you this: let's say the Brooklyn Nets or the New York Knicks sign an 18-year-old kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes directly to the G League, and in the G League, he proves himself. Is that the way it's going to be, or does he go directly into the NBA? And then if he fails in the NBA, does he go to the G League?
I would like to see that kid sent to the G League first. Well, it depends on the situation, because if you've got a kid like Williamson, then in all likelihood he's going to make his way to the NBA first, simply because he's that good. Although between you and I would say that he would have to be sent to the G League just to make sure that he really gets some polish in. But at the same time, knowing how some of these NBA teams like to operate, they're going to want to rush these kids to the pros immediately, just because either they want to sell tickets, or they want to be competitive immediately, or they want to try and market the kid to the public as quickly as possible.
And I think that's the thing too. I think marketing has to do a lot with that, because look at Lonzo Ball.
You mean Lonzo Ball?
Lonzo Ball, decent player, not great, but decent player. That can become a better player. Yes, he can. Out of the three, he can become a very good player. Now, his father's the biggest hype man I've ever seen. He should be a wrestling manager. That's how good this man is as a wrestling manager. He's real good. I mean, give the devil his due. He's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's doing. He's trying to get his own business started, even though bad things have happened to his company and so on. But he's still out there. He's on Facebook and so on, and a lot of people are making their own shows on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on this and that. It's funny how media has gotten so big. I remember, if you beg me for a moment, please.
Mm-hmm.
I had one professor, his name was Professor Cooper, and Rosanna and I went down there one time, and we took his class, and we sat with him, and he said, I said to him, 1%. He said, nobody makes it on YouTube. Nobody will make it on YouTube. I said, no. At the time, at 1%, I said 1% or 2% will make it. And he was the head, or he still is, I think. He still is, or was, the head of the communications department. Look how the media has blown up and make these kids, like 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds that know how to shoot ball. You're going to have these eyes on these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, I mean, agents will be seeing these kids, see if they actually manage to become the greatest basketball players of all time.
Yeah.
But, there's very few LeBron Jameses out there, so I think people should calm down. I mean, who's the biggest high school player that you know of?
The biggest high school player that I know of?
I mean, right now, because I know there's a 7'2" guy that's out there in high school, but who's the best high school ball player out there right now?
Oh, there's quite a few. In fact, some of them are the sons of NBA legends. There's Scottie Pippen's kid, LeBron's kid, of course. Sharif O'Neal of UCLA, who, if I'm not mistaken, I think he already made it to UCLA, but he wound up getting hurt, so he's gone for the season. But those are examples of a few kids right now that are really, really taking over the limelight in the high school circuit.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, switching to baseball from Manny Machado gets his first hit, and everybody starts to scream.
And then you have Bryce Harper.
Who's still out there.
Harper.
Isn't that something?
Harper actually...
or did they sign him for 12 years, $320 million?
Harper just signed with the Phillies formally.
Yeah.
Just this past Saturday afternoon.
For how much?
They had a press conference for him and everything. He got 13 years and $330 million.
Okay, Okay.
And within hours, his jersey, he's going to be wearing number 3 with the Phillies this year, and for the entirety of his deal. His number 3 jersey became the biggest selling jersey of any athlete within the first 24 hours ever.
Well, how old is he? He's 25 or 26, right?
He's 26.
He's 26. He's got a 13-year contract.
No out clause, no trade clause. He gets to call the shots in any potential deal in the event that the Phillies want to deal him away down the road.
Well, now remember one thing. The reason why he's getting that much money is because of taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, you said he was getting 30 million, you said?
330 million.
So you figure 320 million. That's taking taxes out.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to compensate for taxes.
Right.
And that's still a lot of money for 13 years. But watch, after about 3 or 4 years, you're going to hear people blow up even more, try to get more money. I still think as a GM, you always want to sign players at least for 7 years, 5 years tops. It's not like the old days where you used to try to sign a player every year, and on a handshake you got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But 13 years, he'll be 26, 36, 37, 30. He'll be about 38 years old.
Yeah.
And if he still keeps himself in shape, see how the Philly does, he should be okay. But I don't know. I'm with you on that. I mean, as a player standpoint, you try to get as much money as you can. But as a GM, I don't know.
Well, let me put it this way. Whether this makes the Phillies an instant contender, it could, because when you think about it, it's not just Harper. They got a really good pitching staff to go along with them. There's Jake Arrieta, there's Aaron Nola, and also a really good crop of young players for him to work with. Odubel Herrera is one. Rhys Hoskins, who has come on like gangbusters in the year plus that he's been with the Phillies. There's a good young crop of players for the Phillies to have Bryce Harper work with. Can they challenge for an Eastern Division title?
Yes.
It's 50-50 at this point. But I will say one thing. He's going to make the Phillies extremely dangerous.
Well, who do you have? I mean, considering who you have in that division, you have Atlanta, the Mets.
Atlanta, which won the division last year. The Mets, who've gotten a lot better.
Who they signed the closer, by the way. They signed Diaz.
Yep. They gave Edwin Diaz a new contract. And also, there's the other guys that they brought in over the winter. They made the trade for Robinson Cano, and in that deal was Edwin Diaz. They also made the trade for J.D. Davis. They're thinking about making Peter Alonso the first baseman, and Peter Alonso has been smoking the ball in spring training, and right now he's the odds-on favorite to be the first baseman for them, even though he's having major problems defensively. There's also Conforto. There's also Nimmo. They also signed Rajay Davis for outfield help. They made the trade for Keon Broxton to get outfield help. Wilson Ramos was signed to be the catcher. There's also Justin Wilson, who they signed for bullpen help. And the Mets have, slowly but surely, the Mets didn't sign some big-name guys like the other teams did, but the Mets did make some moves that would make them serious players for the season.
As people like to say, they signed quality players.
Yeah.
They don't need sometimes to sign a big. Now, Cespedes, if he ever decides to come back.
Oh, he wants to come back. It's just a matter of following his rehab.
Yeah, exactly. So if he can't come back, that's going to be a hell of a team.
Yeah. Probably make him the left fielder and move Michael Conforto over to center and Brandon Nimmo over to right, or vice versa. Yeah, it would be a really dangerous outfield, and he would make their batting order a hell of a lot better. And notice, the Mets are actually a better team when Yoenis Cespedes is in the lineup. They're over 500 with him.
Yeah, because he's a dangerous hitter at number 4. I mean, figure it this way. All the teams that have made it into the playoffs and the World Series, they've always had a dangerous 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Murder's row, as they like to say.
Yep.
Now, we're in the PC world. Can we say murder's row?
Of course. They're still referring to murderer's row as we speak.
Yeah, because we're in too much of a politically correct world, so I don't know what I can say, what I can't say.
I don't think that's going to pose a problem for anybody.
But the Yankees lost and they won the split.
Mm-hmm.
They split the teams. They won and they lost. These are teams. Is this the year that you can say, well, this is going to be a good year for baseball?
Whether it's going to be a good year for baseball?
Yeah, because of all the teams that are supposed to be good this year.
I mean, it could be, especially when you consider all of the teams that made the real major moves. But there's still the matter of the guys who have not signed contracts yet. Dallas Keuchel is still out there. He's a quality starting pitcher, and he has not gotten one single look from anybody.
Is it because he's asking for too much, or
he's definitely asking for too much?
How old is he?
I'd probably have to look that up, but I would think that he's probably in his 30s. Let me check his bio over here.
Because his late
he
30s,
just turned 31 on New Year's Day.
Okay, and how much? Well, if you know how much years does he want?
Well, last year he made a pretty decent salary, $13 million.
How many years does he want, though? Does he want about 7?
He might want a 7-year deal.
At 31, 7 years, that's not bad. It all depends how much money he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Because a 7-year contract, you figure, if it's because of what, for the knuckleballers, I forgot that pitcher from the White Sox, the knuckleballer. He used to say that he used to work on his legs and his hips. Because if you can work on your legs and your hips, that's what made you throw the knuckleball very well.
You probably mean Charlie Huff.
Charlie Huff, yeah. Charlie Huff was the guy. He pitched until his 40s?
Yeah, early to mid-40s.
And Phil Niekro with 113 to spell Lee.
Mm-hmm.
That was funny. But I mean, all in all, in general, do you think that each, let's say, top 4 in each league will make it interesting this year? Or top 5?
I would say so. I mean, you look at the American League, it would be the Red Sox. I still think the Astros are going to be a player. I think the Indians will definitely be a player because they still have Corey Kluber in the starting rotation. The Yankees are definitely going to be a player this season. And maybe I would count on a team like Tampa. Tampa's going to surprise a lot of people this year, just like they surprised people last year when they won 90 games, basically using their entire pitching staff. They practically used a bullpen guy for 2 innings and then used the rest of the bullpen and then have one starting pitcher go the entire way. So that's what it would look like in the American League. The National League, I still say Atlanta is going to be dangerous. Washington's going to be the team to look at now, and they're going to have the most, not Washington, Philly. Philly is going to have the most pressure on them right now after they made the Harper signing. Then after that, I still think the Chicago Cubs are dangerous. Milwaukee's going to be a player. St. Louis, I think, is still going to be dangerous. The Dodgers, I would definitely count on the Dodgers to be a little bit of a player right now. And other than that, maybe Colorado. And Colorado gave Nolan Arenado a brand new contract as well. So Colorado is going to be looked at as a potential player.
And your dark horse?
The dark horse right now, I mentioned Tampa in the American League. National League, that's a really good one. I would probably have to say...
It's not going to be the Marlins.
Oh, no, not even. Not even.
Imagine.
Mm-hmm. I would think maybe a team like... Maybe Milwaukee would be the one team to look at as a dark horse because they still have a pretty solid pitching staff, and of course Ryan Braun, and also the first baseman that they had last year, who had a really solid season. Their batting order is going to be a pretty dangerous group to look at. Eric Thames is who I'm thinking of. Eric Thames is going to be the one guy that pitchers are going to be really concerned about having to pitch to.
Switching gears for a moment, the Combine for the football players are up.
You mean the scouting combine?
Yes, that one. Jesus, I'm really screwing it up today. But anyway.
Yeah, there were records falling left and right in the 40-yard dash.
Well, some of them could be track stars the way they're going,
Mm-hmm.
Because Ronaldo Nehemiah, he was one of the best, hurdlers of all time, and he was a great football player too for what he was too at one time too. So don't but. What do you think of of that? Do you really think it shows off talent, or is it just one of those where it's like a test, where you're a great test taker, but when you get into the real football game, you're a screw-up?
That's exactly what I've been thinking, because a lot of these guys are hit and miss. They'll look great at the combine, yet by the time they suit up for a game after getting drafted, they'll look like a complete bust. Whereas at the combine, they'll be close to a bust, and then they'll fall down into being a fifth or sixth round pick. Somebody takes a chance on them, and then they'll look like a diamond in the rough.
The Jets are favored to pick Levon.
The Jets being the favorites to get Le'Veon Bell, you mean?
Yeah.
I made it loud and clear that the Jets needed a running back to support Sam Darnold, and I still stand by that. Le'Veon Bell is going to cost a lot of money for somebody. If the Jets can get Le'Veon Bell, it would be worth it because he would take a lot of the pressure off of Sam Darnold. The Jets also need a number one receiver. And this is where the draft comes in. They're going to be picking third in the draft, so maybe it would behoove them to get themselves a big-time receiver. There's this one receiver that people have been looking at.
A.J. Green?
Possibly. Let me see here.
But they said they're highly, Jets highly unlikely.
Here he is, DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
A guy who looks like someone who should be competing for a bodybuilding contest. But he, at around 6'4" or 6'5", you really can't go wrong with a kid like that because he would easily expose a matchup against an opposing defensive back. So
Should
maybe
the Jets acquire Antonio Brown?
from your mouth to God's ears, man. The question is, what do the Jets give them? The Steelers want a first-round draft pick and probably a major player or something.
Do you give up that major player to get Antonio Brown and get the other guy?
It depends on who the Steelers want, because if they want somebody like, well, let's put it this way. The Steelers would probably want a receiver in return. I would have no problem giving up either Jermaine Kearse or Robbie Anderson. That's for sure.
Because I can say this much, and that the Jets are like the Knicks, not like the Giants, and this is including with the Mets too, and the Brooklyn Nets as well. All these teams have to prove themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, they can get great players and then be a bust of a team, but these teams got to start spending some money. The Giants do pretty well.
Yeah.
The Jets, that for some reason they don't want to open up their wallets for nothing. The Mets seem to have their purses tightened up more than a virgin. I mean, and the Knicks right now, and the Nets at least they're doing something right. They're going in the right direction, even though they're in eighth.
The Nets are slumping right now. They've lost 2 games really, really badly recently, and I'm a little concerned about them, though, because suddenly they've forgotten how to defend the three-point shot, and even with Spencer Dinwiddie back, things seem to be going backwards for them.
It's the curse of the Nets all over again, maybe, But as I said, the Knicks have to prove themselves right now, because this is supposed to be this year or next year. They have to prove themselves by getting the players that they have to get. Right now, they're so-called tanking, and the NBA doesn't like when people tank. Well, what do you expect them to do if they want to get the number one player? If you win the NBA, you expect if you win the NBA championship, you expect them to get the number one draft choice? How do you fix that? There's no way of fixing it.
Well, it's not like these players are purposely trying to lose games. I mean, they hear the talk all the time that the fans are wanting them to lose games. These players have no interest in losing games. They want to win. They're trying to better themselves. They're trying to keep their jobs for next season. But all of this talk is just so much and so alarmingly loud that naturally it's going to get to these kids.
And, and it's funny, too, because now we're expecting something from the Mets. We're expecting something from the Knicks. We're expecting something from the Jets. The Jets got to open up their purse and go, let's get these guys and be done with it.
Let's see what happens, because free agency is going to be starting within the next couple of days. And I would expect that the Jets would bring in at least a couple of people in for interviews. Let's see the Jets invite some guys for interviews. If the guys accept, that's one thing. If not, then that's their choice. But let's see the Jets at least invite these guys for interviews first. I want to see exactly where their head is.
No, let me ask you this. Their track record hasn't been the greatest.
That's an understatement.
Okay, when it comes to signing people, because there have been players that have wanted to play for the Jets, and because they don't open up their purse, they just disregard them. So is this the new and improved Jets that we're seeing that they're willing to pay, or is this the old-fashioned Jets going backwards and saying, you know what, we're not going to pay much?
We're going to have to wait and see with these guys, man, especially with Mr. Johnson running the show in the place of his brother, and Mike McCagnon still the general manager.
And with the even with the Giants, too, the Giants re-signed the backup quarterback.
Yep. And now they're shopping around Olivier Vernon.
Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Well, he didn't really fit well with their defensive scheme last year, so I would say that would be a good thing.
Because they play a 3-4 defense.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think defense is where they need to look with their first-round pick.
should the Jets drop down? Because they've been talking about, depending upon what type of draft picks they get, should the Jets drop down to let's say number 5 or number 6?
It depends on where they want to look. Because if they want to look at getting the best player available, stay at number 3. But if they're looking at a particular player who the experts project is going to be picked lower, then the Jets should probably drop down. For my money, Hector, keep that 3rd overall pick and go for DK Metcalf. The Jets need a number 1 receiver.
And Giants?
The Giants, defense. My guess is they would look at Nick Bosa, and they would also look at Josh Allen from Kentucky, but my guess is that they're going to be drafted a little bit too high. So maybe the Giants should explore trading up to get to either number 1 or number 2, maybe even number 4, because from what I understand, Kyler Murray is going to be picked number 1 overall by Arizona.
Because right now the Giants are what, number 6?
Yeah, the Giants are in sixth place in the draft draft positioning.
And you can't get anybody good at number 6?
Oh, they can get somebody good at number 6. It's just a matter of who falls down to them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Because, but like I said before, you include the Knicks, the Nets, the Mets, the Jets, they all don't like to spend the money, with the Knicks it's more of a salary cap type deal, but them other people, they don't spend money for nothing.
The Knicks will spend money, but they just don't spend it correctly. That's their problem.
That's another thing too. The Knicks this year have to prove, every team this year, because they keep on saying, all the teams that I've said, they have to prove themselves this year. They have to improve themselves by this year because they keep on saying, we're going to spend money this year. We're going to get the right people this year. Trust us, trust us, trust us. We've heard that nonsense before. Now this is time. It's put up or shut up.
Mm-hmm. And the Nets will spend money too. They're going to have a lot of free space in the cap to consider this summer. So they're going to be spending money, and it's just a matter of who's going to want to go there. And I would think Brooklyn would be a really attractive place to go there simply because of the leaps and bounds that they've overcome in the last 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, the players themselves are the ones that are going to be very attractive to people. Now, who goes where, that's a whole different story because you got web spinners out there that are saying, KD's going to go to the Knicks with Kyrie, and this person and Kwame, this guy's going to go to the Nets because he wants to stay in the state and blah, blah, blah. This is a whole bunch of smokescreen. It's great to dream, but I want to see the reality, how it comes out.
Yeah, we need to wait and see, because there's no telling what these guys are really thinking right now. And the way Kevin Durant has just been a little rude to the media lately, who knows what he's really thinking?
But he's been, to me, I know that the reporters are doing their job, but he's tired, and I don't blame him. He's tired of him taking questions about, do you think you're going to go for the New York Knicks? They want to get that little soundbite, and he just wants to let the man concentrate on his own basketball team.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
And, if he's rude, he's got a right to be rude because that's what he's keep on saying. Hey, guys, leave me alone. Talk about my basketball team. Don't talk about what's going on after. That's business. This right now is my business. This right now is my job. My job is to play for the Golden State Warriors, not for you to tell me about the New York Knicks. Now, again, they want a soundbite.
I hate to tell you this, but they're going to have to wait for that soundbite sometime over the summer when they have that big press conference and he's showing off whatever jersey he's showing off and signing his contract with whichever team he's going to be going to.
Even Kyrie Irving, I mean, do you think this is the big one? This is the biggest players that are coming out this year?
Durant and Irving headline 2 of the biggest players. That's for sure.
And who else?
As far as who else,
big player wise, you got him.
Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, his teammate on the Warriors. There's been a lot of talk about him probably going to the Lakers, so he could play in his hometown and be closer to his family.
So you got about what 10 top players that are coming out that are worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, you know, because you got the guy AD. They're still trying to get rid of AD to go to LA.
Yeah.
And that was collusion in itself, but
he's not going to be a free agent until 2020, though.
Yeah, the year after he'll be gone by the next year. He'll be gone by this year. He'll be gone by
Durant,
this year.
Kawhi Leonard, Irving, Kemba Walker is another big-time free agent. He lately of the Hornets, although he made it loud and clear he wants to re-sign with the Hornets. DeMarcus Cousins is another. Jimmy Butler, Nikola Vucevic, who's with the Magic. Tobias Harris, lately of the Sixers. Kristaps Porzingis, Chris Middleton, D'Angelo Russell, Eric Bledsoe, Marc Gasol, Julius Randle, Al Horford, DeAndre Jordan, Nikola Mirotic, Bojan Bogdanovic, Derrick Rose, Goran Dragic, Malcolm Brogdon, J.J. Redick, Harrison Barnes, Brooke Lopez, Willie Cauley-Stein, Rudy Gay, Paul Millsap, Thaddeus Young, Danny Green, Marcus Morris, Jonas Valanciunas, Ricky Rubio, Terry Rozier, Terrence Ross, Enes Kanter, Darren Collison, Isaiah Thomas, Al-Farouq Amino, Hassan Whiteside, Rajon Rondo, Jeff Teague, Kelly Oubre, Trevor Ariza, Dwight Howard, Taj Gibson, Thomas Satoransky, Wesley Matthews, Patrick Beverley, Elfrid Payton. Those are 50 of the top 70 free agents.
Now let me ask you, out of the 50, how many do you think are going to stay with the teams that they are? About 3 of them? 4 of them?
At this rate, probably 1 or 2 of them.
I think Porzingis will stay.
You think he'll stay with the Mavericks?
Yeah, because he wants to play with Dirk and his the other guy.
Mm-hmm. And with Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I think yeah. Since Dirk, you know, they keep on saying Dirk is going to retire, but if he's got Porzingis there, I think he's going to play 1 more year with him, 1 or 2 more years with him.
They keep saying he's going to retire, but he never said anything about wanting to retire. He might want to play next year.
Yeah. And I don't blame him. If Porzingis comes back, that's a hell of a front court.
And Dirk Nowitzki can still play. He's still a very dangerous shooter.
I mean, he didn't show it at the 3-point challenge, but he's still a damage. He still can play the game.
Well, the 3-point shootout was water under the bridge. We know exactly what kind of career he's had, and we know he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Exactly. Unfortunately, we have less than a minute to go, which means we have to sign off.
All right. Well,
Hector, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me. And let's go the whole of New York. Let's win.
Yes, sir. And, of course, thanks to Kenny Graham on the other side of the glass, and thanks to Hector on the phone, and thanks to you guys for watching us. For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
I'm Hector.
We hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Good night, everyone.